Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Let's go on our topic about brain. Based on the content of the previous chapter, we can summarize several characteristics of the combination of future internal structures. 1. Since future internal structures can combine, multiple G containing related feature internal structures must have simultaneous activation effects. 2. These feature internal structures can be completely unrelated in origin or function. 3. The combination of feature internal structures do not necessarily occur within the G-wave manifestation zone, i.e., not all such combinations are consciously perceived. 4. The new G-waves produced by such combinations often act like sensory input G-waves, activating existing internal Gs and generating new ones. From these traits, we can begin to understand how the earliest ideas of gods and deities may have arisen in ancient times. When early humans experienced natural phenomena like earthquakes or lightning strikes, the sensory G waves they received could have combined through shared features, with internal G waves representing the agency of humans or animals. This led to the intuitive construction of anthropomorphic explanations, imagining nature as driven by divine beings or spirits. Such mythologizing interpretations, though uh, irritational, became the a national foundation for the emergence, emergence, uh, emergence of gods, demons, and eventually the formation of religious and mythological systems. However, the combination of feature internal structures become truly distressing when the resulting G waves are projected into the G-wave manifestation zone, i.e., when they enter conscious awareness. Let's consider a few real-life examples. A young mother takes her baby on a trip, standing by a railing at the edge of a cliff. She suddenly has a terrifying thought. What if I threw my baby down? Instantly, she feels overwhelming fear and guilty, and even begin, begins to suspect that there is a demon inside her mind. Another example, her father, who previously suffered from a phobia of knives, is chopping vegetables in the kitchen. His beloved daughter runs in, and in a flash, a thought appears. What if I stabbed her? He's filled with fear and shame. Or someone reads about a deranged killer harming their parents and becomes worried that they too might commit such a horrifying act. These types of thoughts are actually quite common in real life, but fear but few dare to speak of them, as if mentioning them would make them real. However, once we understand the mechanism of feature internal structure combination, there is no need for fear or guilt when these thoughts occur. On the contrary, such awareness allows for deeper self understanding. Let's examine the mechanism behind these examples. In order for a feature internal structure to combine, simultaneous activation of multiple G waves is necessary. In the case of the mother and the father, G waves representing danger, such as height or knife, were naturally activated due to the surrounding environment. At the same time, strong G waves representing the self and beloved family members, the baby or or daughter, were also activated. These co-activated G waves, through overlapping features, spontaneously form new combinations. The result is a new G wave. Yes, the thought itself, which is then projected into manifestation zone, entering conscious awareness. The new G wave, filled with disturbing content, will further trigger a chain reaction. It activates G waves related to moral judgment, tragic imagination, and self evaluation. These, in turn, simulate emotional G waves: fear, guilty, disgust. Finally, this emotional output may project into motor instinct G's, generating protective avoidance behaviors. Moreover, the new G wave may also be projected into cognitive G's related to the self, psychology, and social identity, leading the person to mistakenly believe that these simulated thoughts reflect their true self. In severe cases, this may become the foundation for future self harm or other abnormal behaviors. The same logic applies to the example of the person who reads about the killer in the newspaper. The G wave of fear combines with in- internal representations of loved ones, forming a thought that causes self doubt and distress. From the perspective of biological evolution, this fear reaction has its adaptive value. When feature internal structure combinations produce fear, the organism generates avoidance behavior, thus increasing survival chances. This fear to avoidance sequence can be seen as an instinctual danger avoidance due at work. In modern humans, such instinctual danger avoidance cues are deeply embedded. Therefore, encountering dangerous environments and experiencing fearful combinations of internal structures is completely natural. What matters is how we interpret these inner phenomena. Once we understand that these combinations are natural byproducts of Juve activity, not signs of inner evil, we can break the cycle of shame and fear. In fact, these combinations only happen because we care deeply. The mother has the thought because she loves her baby. The father has the thought because he loves his daughter. The reader fears for their own behavior because they love their parents. Now, imagine if the mother had only been holding a backpack. Would she fear throwing it to the off the cliff? Probably not. If the stray cat has walked into the kitchen, instead of her daughter? Would the father fear stabbing it again? Unlikely. Instead, they might have had thoughts like that. What if I jump? Or, or will the cat steal my food? Right? Still, products of fear internal structure combinations, just not as emotionally intense. By understanding these mechanisms, we gain something precious, a more objective view of ourselves, and that in turn helps us avoid harmful reconstructions of self related cognitive genes, reconstructions that often lead to psychological distress. Many real life tragedies begin with a subtle affirmation: there's something wrong with myself. Western mythology often tells of angels falling from grace and became demons. In reality, this is a symbolic reflection of how self denial, driven by misinterpreted inner combinations, can corrupt one's psychological structure over time. But if we recognize the objective mechanism behind future internal structure combinations, if we can understand that such thoughts do not define us, then we can avoid falling into the trap of inner condemnation. Through scientific and objective understanding of how our brain works, we can learn to know ourselves more clearly, avoid psychological entanglements, and stop many tragedies at the source. So that's all the content today. See you next time. Bye bye.